Hi, welcome to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Linda sits alone at her kitchen table at 2:17 a.m. Her toddler, Sophie, is asleep on a small couch nearby. On Linda's borrowed laptop is the amount, $3,482.16. Linda covers her mouth and begins crying quietly, so she does not wake her daughter. 9 months earlier, she had been a struggling waitress with 0 subscribers, 0 views, unpaid rent, and only a few dollars left. Linda works long shifts at a busy restaurant. One afternoon, Sophie's daycare calls because she is sick. Linda asks her manager, Greg Miller, for permission to leave early. Greg refuses because the restaurant is short-staffed. When Linda insists that she must pick up her daughter, an argument begins. Greg tells her she is unreliable and fires her in front of the other employees. As Linda clears out her locker, a coworker named Melissa sees a notebook titled, YouTube Ideas. Melissa laughs and tells the others that Linda believes she is going to become famous online. Someone searches for her channel. It shows 0 subscribers, 0 views. The room fills with laughter. Linda leaves carrying her uniform, notebook, and broken pride. Linda became a mother at 23. Sophie's father left when the child was still a baby and rarely provided support. Linda worked double shifts at the restaurant to survive. Her money went toward rent, daycare, groceries, diapers, medical bills, transportation. She had no savings. After being fired, Linda applies for other restaurant jobs. Some require night shifts she cannot work because of Sophie. Others pay too little to cover childcare. Her rent is due in 2 weeks. The refrigerator is nearly empty. One evening, she watches YouTube videos while Sophie sleeps beside her. Linda notices many mothers discussing perfect homes and expensive lifestyles, but few talk honestly about struggling to feed a child while unemployed. She decides to speak about the life nobody shows. The next day, she visited Walmart Boulevard, Bentonville, and purchased her tripod stand, ring light, mic, and other light for her content creation. Her first video would reveal a truth she had hidden from everyone, including her own family. Linda records her first video after Sophie falls asleep. The title is, "I got fired today, and I don't know how I'll feed my daughter." She balances her phone against a cereal box. The apartment is dim. Laundry is piled behind her. She records several times because she keeps crying. Sophie wakes halfway through and calls for her. Linda pauses, comforts her, then continues recording. She uploads the video just before midnight. After 1 hour, 0 views. The following morning, 0 views. 2 days later, she sees 1 view. Then she realizes it came from checking the video herself. But losing her job was not the worst thing that happened that week. Linda continues uploading. She films during Sophie's naps and late at night. Her videos receive almost no attention. Her electricity company sends a final warning. Her landlord asks when she will pay the rent. She sells a small television and some jewelry. Sophie asks why they no longer buy her favorite cereal. Linda tells her they are trying something new, then cries after putting her to bed. Her former coworkers find another video and share it in a group chat. They mock the poor lighting, her small apartment, and her emotional delivery. Linda feels humiliated. She decides to delete the channel. Then a notification appears. Linda had uploaded nearly 15 videos over 6 weeks. She hadn't missed a single upload. Every night after putting Sophie to bed, she filmed, edited, and published another story. But her analytics barely moved. Some videos had 3 views, 7 views, 12 views. One had only 1 view, and it was Linda herself checking if the upload had worked. One afternoon, while searching for advice online, Linda made the mistake of sharing one of her videos in a large Facebook group for aspiring YouTubers. She hoped someone would offer constructive feedback. Instead, the comments became brutal. One person wrote, "Just quit. YouTube isn't for everyone." Another replied, "I've seen family videos with more views than this." Someone else laughed, "Imagine uploading every day just to get 5 views." Another comment read, "Your own daughter probably doesn't watch these." The jokes kept coming. Screenshots of Linda's analytics began circulating. People zoomed in on the tiny numbers. Some creators even used her channel as an example of what not to do. One reaction video mocked her titles. Another laughed at the lighting in her apartment. One creator joked, "This might be the smallest YouTube channel I've ever seen." Thousands of people watched. Many laughed. Linda sat frozen at her kitchen table. She closed the laptop. For several minutes, she simply stared at the wall. She wondered if everyone was right. Maybe she was embarrassing herself. Maybe she was wasting precious time she should have spent looking for another restaurant job. That night, after Sophie fell asleep, Linda opened YouTube Studio one last time. She hovered over the delete channel button. Her finger stopped, not because she believed she would succeed, but because somewhere deep inside, she wasn't ready to let strangers decide how her story would end. She closed the laptop without deleting the channel. It was the hardest decision she had made since losing her job. She had no idea that, by the following evening, one comment from a complete stranger would change everything. For nearly 2 months, Linda uploaded videos into what felt like complete silence. Every evening followed the same routine. She would wait until Sophie was asleep, quietly clean the tiny apartment, balance her old phone on a stack of cereal boxes, and press record. Then she would upload the video and wait. Most nights, nothing happened. No comments. Almost no views. No subscribers. After the online ridicule from strangers and even former coworkers, Linda's confidence had almost disappeared. One evening, after uploading another deeply personal video, she opened YouTube Studio, expecting the same empty screen she had grown used to. Instead, there was one notification. Someone had left a comment. Her heart began racing as she tapped the screen. The comment came from a woman named Carol Bennett, a 58-year-old widow living in Pennsylvania. It simply read, "Please don't stop. I raised 2 children alone after losing my husband, and I remember exactly what this fear feels like. Your daughter may not understand today, but one day she'll realize how hard you fought for her. Keep going. Someone out here is listening." Linda stared at the words. She read them once, then again, and again. Tears slowly filled her eyes. For the first time since losing her job, for the first time since strangers laughed at her dream, she no longer felt invisible. Someone understood. Someone believed her story mattered. That single comment meant more to Linda than 1,000 empty compliments. She immediately replied, thanking Carol for taking the time to write. The next day, Carol watched another video. Then another. Every upload was met with another thoughtful comment. Slowly, something unexpected began happening. Carol wasn't alone anymore. Another single mother joined. Then a grandmother. A woman caring for her disabled husband. A recently divorced nurse. A retired school teacher. None of them came looking for perfect advice. They came because they saw pieces of themselves in Linda's story. That's when Linda stopped trying to sound like every other creator on YouTube. She stopped pretending she had all the answers. Instead, she simply spoke from the heart. Her videos became honest conversations rather than polished performances. She uploaded stories with titles like, "What I Fed My Toddler When I Had Only $12, The Night I Almost Gave Up, How Being Fired Made Me Feel Like a Failure, Raising a Child When You Have No Backup Plan." The things single mothers cry about in private. The production quality didn't improve. Her camera was still old. The lighting was still poor. The apartment was still small. But something else had changed. People no longer came to watch perfect videos. They came to hear the truth. And without realizing it, Linda was quietly building something far more valuable than subscribers. She was building trust. By now, Linda had accepted that her channel probably wasn't going to become successful overnight. Her audience was still small. But every comment from Carol and the handful of loyal viewers reminded her that someone was listening. One evening, after putting Sophie to bed, Linda sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the nearly empty refrigerator. The image reminded her of something that had happened just 2 days earlier. It was a moment she couldn't stop thinking about. She picked up her phone, pressed record, and took a long, shaky breath. The title of the video was simple. "My daughter asked why we had no food, and I had no answer." For a few seconds, Linda couldn't speak. She simply looked into the camera, trying to gather herself. Then she quietly began telling the story. She explained how Sophie had wandered into the kitchen that morning, still wearing her little pink pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. The toddler opened the refrigerator, expecting breakfast like any other child. She stood there for a few moments, looking at the nearly empty shelves. Then she turned toward her mother with innocent curiosity. "Mommy, where's the food?" Linda admitted that hearing those 5 words felt like her heart had shattered. She smiled at Sophie and gently closed the refrigerator door. "We're going shopping later, sweetheart," she had told her. But the truth was far more painful. She didn't have enough money to buy groceries. After Sophie wandered off to play, Linda locked herself in the bathroom. She cried as quietly as she could, terrified that her daughter might hear. Looking back into the camera, Linda wiped away fresh tears. She didn't ask for sympathy. She wasn't trying to make anyone feel sorry for her. She simply said, "If you're a parent watching this, and you've ever smiled in front of your child while silently wondering how you're going to make it through tomorrow, I want you to know you're not alone." Just as she finished speaking, tiny footsteps echoed through the apartment. Sophie appeared in the doorway, still wearing her pajamas and holding her favorite stuffed rabbit. Without saying a word, she climbed into Linda's lap, wrapped her little arms around her mother's neck, and rested her head against her shoulder. Linda instinctively hugged her back. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The camera kept recording. When Linda reviewed the footage later that night, she paused over that final scene. She thought about cutting it out. It felt too personal, too vulnerable, too real. But after several minutes of staring at the screen, she made a different decision. She left the moment exactly as it happened. No music, no dramatic editing, no filters, just a tired young mother holding the little girl who gave her a reason to keep fighting. She clicked upload. Then she closed the laptop and went to bed, expecting nothing. The next morning, the video had only 31 views. By lunchtime, it had reached 80. That evening, it crossed 240. Linda smiled. It wasn't viral, but to her, 240 people choosing to hear her story felt like a miracle. What she didn't know was that one of those viewers had sent the video to someone with an audience of millions. Family and lifestyle creator Vanessa Cole watched the entire video in silence. When it ended, she immediately shared a short clip with her followers. Above it, she wrote just one sentence: "This mother does not need pity. She needs an audience." Within hours, everything Linda thought she knew about YouTube was about to change. Linda barely slept that night. After uploading the video, she put Sophie back to bed, turned off the lights, and quietly prayed. Not for fame, not for millions of views, just enough money to buy groceries and keep a roof over their heads. She had no idea that while she slept, thousands of strangers were discovering her story. At 6:14 the next morning, her phone buzzed. Then again, and again. The notifications kept coming so quickly that the phone vibrated non-stop across the kitchen table. Half asleep, Linda picked it up, thinking something terrible had happened. Instead, she saw hundreds of YouTube notifications. New subscribers, new comments, new shares. She blinked several times, convinced there had to be some kind of mistake. She opened YouTube Studio. The screen took several seconds to load. Then she froze. Her subscriber count had climbed from 47 to over 2,000 overnight. Before she could even process it, the number refreshed again. 3,800, 5,600, 8,900. Every few seconds, the number kept rising. Linda covered her mouth with both hands. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She hurried to the video. The view count was climbing so quickly that it seemed impossible to follow. Comments poured in from all over the United States. Single mothers, grandmothers, widows, women who had survived divorce, parents struggling to make ends meet. Each one shared a piece of their own story. One woman wrote, "I thought I was the only mother crying in the bathroom after my children fell asleep." Another commented, "Thank you for making me feel seen." A retired nurse wrote, "I've been hiding my struggles for years. Your honesty gave me hope." Linda spent hours reading every message. She cried more that morning than she had in months, not because she was overwhelmed by success, but because she finally realized she wasn't alone. By afternoon, the video had spread across Facebook, TikTok, and X. People weren't sharing it because it was perfectly edited. They were sharing it because it was painfully real. Then came the emails. A regional television station requested an interview. A parenting podcast invited Linda to tell her story. A grocery company offered a small sponsorship that included enough money to restock her refrigerator. For the first time in weeks, Linda pushed a shopping cart through a grocery store without calculating the price of every single item. She filled it with fresh fruit, milk, bread, eggs, vegetables, even a small box of Sophie's favorite cereal. As they reached the checkout, Sophie smiled and whispered, "Mommy, we can buy cereal again?" Linda smiled through tears. "Yes, sweetheart, we can." A few days later, she paid part of her overdue rent. For the first time since losing her job, hope began replacing fear. She truly believed everything was finally changing. But the internet has a way of building people up, only to test them again. Linda uploaded another video, expecting the momentum to continue. Instead, it barely reached a fraction of the previous views. She tried again. The numbers dropped even lower. Then the criticism began. Some people claimed she had become famous only because viewers felt sorry for her. Others accused her of exploiting Sophie for attention. One comment received thousands of likes. "Without your daughter, nobody would watch your videos." Another wrote, "She's turning her child into content." Those words hit Linda harder than losing her job ever had. Because she had promised herself from the very beginning. She would never allow Sophie's childhood to become a product. Now she wondered if the critics were right. That night, she sat alone in front of her laptop. Her finger hovered over the upload button for her next video. For the second time in her YouTube journey, she seriously considered walking away. For the first time in months, Linda felt like she could finally breathe. The sponsorship from the grocery company had filled her refrigerator. She had paid part of her overdue rent. Sophie was smiling more. For a brief moment, it felt as though life was finally moving in the right direction. But on YouTube, yesterday's success doesn't guarantee tomorrow's. Confident that she'd discovered the secret, Linda uploaded another video. She refreshed YouTube Studio every few minutes, expecting the numbers to climb like before. Instead, they barely moved. 23 views, 48, 81. Nothing like the hundreds of thousands she had experienced just days earlier. "Maybe people have already forgotten me," she whispered. She tried again. The next video performed even worse. Determined to get her audience back, Linda did what many new creators do. She stopped listening to herself. Instead, she began copying everyone else. She changed her thumbnails to match trending channels. She borrowed popular titles. She copied introductions from creators with millions of subscribers. She even tried speaking with the same energy and style she saw online. But something felt different. The warmth in her voice disappeared. The honesty that had connected her to people was replaced by carefully rehearsed words. Her videos looked more polished, yet they felt less genuine, and her audience noticed. The comments slowly changed. One viewer wrote, "Linda, I miss the old you." Another said, "Your first videos felt like a conversation." These feel like advertisements. One comment stopped her in her tracks. "We didn't subscribe because your life was perfect. We subscribed because your story was real." Linda closed the laptop and sat quietly for several minutes. Those words echoed in her mind. For the first time, she realized something important. People hadn't connected with her because she had expensive equipment. They hadn't stayed because of dramatic editing. They stayed because she had the courage to tell the truth. That night, instead of chasing trends, Linda opened her notebook and began studying her own videos. She watched every upload from the beginning. She noticed something she had completely overlooked. Her most successful videos all had one thing in common. They didn't begin with explanations. They began with emotion. A difficult decision, an unanswered question, a painful memory. They invited people into a story. She also realized something else. The titles that performed best weren't trying to impress people. They spoke directly to real struggles. "I got fired today. My daughter asked why we had no food. The night I almost gave up." They weren't clever. They were honest. Linda made herself a promise. She would never build her channel by turning Sophie into content. Her daughter would always come before views. If Sophie appeared in a video, it would happen naturally, not because the algorithm rewarded it. From that moment on, Linda stopped asking, "What will go viral?" Instead, she asked, "What story might help someone feel less alone?" Everything began changing again. Slowly, then steadily. Her first YouTube payment arrived, just over $100. It wasn't life-changing, but Linda smiled as she looked at the email. It was the first money she had ever earned by sharing her story. A month later, the channel generated more than $2,000. Then another month passed. One emotional documentary reached millions of viewers. By the end of that month, Linda had earned more than $18,000. For the first time in almost a year, she paid every overdue bill. She cleared the remaining rent balance. She repaired her aging car. Most importantly, she enrolled Sophie in a safer daycare she had dreamed of but could never afford. On Sophie's first morning there, Linda knelt beside her tiny backpack, kissed her forehead, and watched her walk inside with a smile. As Linda sat back in her car, tears filled her eyes. Not because she had become wealthy, but because she had finally given her daughter something she had prayed for every single night. A little more security. She smiled through the tears. She thought the hardest part of her journey was finally behind her. She couldn't have been more wrong. 2 days later, someone began spreading rumors that Linda had invented her entire story. Online posts accused Linda of faking her poverty, using her daughter for money, staging the empty refrigerator, lying about being fired. Her former manager, Greg, claims Linda was dismissed because she was lazy. Melissa joins the attacks. Sponsors pause deals. Linda considers quitting. Instead, she releases a calm video showing her termination letter, job applications, rent notices, early videos with no views, daycare bills, the contract she refused, her plan to protect Sophie's privacy. Linda never attacks anyone. She explains that her story was never about being perfect. It was about surviving honestly. Viewers rally around her. Her audience grows even larger. The deal she rejected was meant to make her rich, but protecting her audience was about to create something far bigger. Ethical brands approach Linda. A publisher offers her a book deal. A streaming company licenses a documentary about single mothers. She creates a membership community focused on encouragement and practical support. Her revenue comes from YouTube ads, ethical sponsorships, book sales, speaking events, documentary licensing, memberships, merchandise, digital programs created with qualified experts. Linda makes it clear that the $1 million is total business revenue connected to her channel, not one YouTube paycheck. After 8 months, she is only $87,000 away from the milestone. She decides to make her biggest documentary, The Mothers Nobody Sees It, follows women working night shifts, raising children alone, facing layoffs, and rebuilding their lives. Linda invested nearly everything into the documentary, and for the first several hours, nobody watched. The documentary launches slowly. Linda fears she has made a terrible mistake. Then Carol shares it. Vanessa shares it. Single mothers across America begin sending it to one another. The documentary reaches millions of people. Linda sits at the same kitchen table where she once waited for one view. At 2:17 a.m., she refreshes the screen. The total reads $1,003,482.16. Sophie is asleep nearby. Linda begins crying quietly. She looks at the framed printout of Carol's first comment. The woman who once had 0 views now has millions watching. Linda does not use the money to impress the coworkers who mocked her. She buys a modest home where Sophie has her own bedroom. She creates an emergency fund for single mothers facing eviction, childcare problems, or job loss. She also launches grants for young mothers who want to return to school, start businesses, learn digital skills, build creative careers, escape unstable working conditions. The first grant is named after Carol. For months, people wondered what Linda would do once she became a millionaire. Some expected her to buy a luxury car. Others thought she'd purchase a mansion or spend her money proving everyone who mocked her wrong. But Linda never forgot what it felt like to stand in front of an almost empty refrigerator, wondering how she was going to feed her little girl. She did buy a modest home, not because she wanted to impress anyone, but because she wanted Sophie to finally have a bedroom she could call her own. For the first time in years, they didn't have to worry about rent notices taped to the door or whether they would have to move again. Then, Linda did something nobody expected. She created the New Beginning Fund, a nonprofit dedicated to helping struggling single parents who were trying to rebuild their lives. The fund provided emergency assistance for mothers and fathers facing eviction, job loss, childcare costs, and food insecurity. It also awarded small grants to people who wanted to start businesses, learn new skills, or pursue creative careers but couldn't afford the first step. The very first grant was named after Carol Bennett, the woman whose single comment had convinced Linda not to quit when almost everyone else was laughing. Linda often said that YouTube didn't change her life because of an algorithm. It changed her life because one stranger chose kindness instead of criticism, and that's what she wanted her success to represent. Not money, not fame, but hope. Because sometimes, the one person who believes in you is all it takes to change your future forever. Final message: Linda did not become successful because she had expensive equipment, powerful connections, or a perfect life. She succeeded because she spoke honestly to people who felt invisible. Her channel began with 0 subscribers and 0 views, but it changed when one person decided her story mattered. So tell me, viewers, would you continue uploading if your first videos received no views and everyone around you laughed? Every week, we bring you stories that remind you to never give up. If that's the kind of inspiration you need, subscribe and become part of our community.